Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We will always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access to information and translation issues, some information can be lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let us start today's episode.
Welcome to Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and I would love for you to say hello to my lovely co-host, Delila.
Hi, everyone.
And on this podcast, we will be covering famous Scandinavian criminals who make their mark throughout Scandinavian history. While the United States is considered the serial killer / crime capital of the world, there are little-known serial killers and criminals across the globe. While some of these names may not be familiar to you, some of these killers and criminals terrified their home countries with their various reigns of terror, some more terrifying than others. And on this third episode, we already have a slight deviation from the last two. And when I say deviation, I'm mostly referring to the fact that this killer is not necessarily a product of their environment. This killer was someone who displayed antisocial behavior and psychotic tendencies. But one thing I can say about this killer and the last is that they both were employees working for nursing homes that targeted similar types of people in similar age ranges. So today, we are covering the notorious Aino Nykopp-Koski. Between 2004 and 2009, Nykopp-Koski worked in a range of hospitals, care homes, and patient homes. There, she killed 5 elderly patients using sedatives and opiates. Nykopp-Koski was apprehended in March 2009 after families realized the correlation of death following her visits. Nykopp-Koski would arrive at patients' homes and administer deadly doses of medications such as sedatives and opioids, like I mentioned just a second ago. The patients were not prescribed these medications, so it was kind of interesting how random some of these things really were. Nykopp-Koski claimed the victims died of either natural causes or accidental overdoses, but she was convicted and sentenced to life for her crimes in 2010. Finnish media outlets went crazy with this news, as there aren't many serial killers that come out of Finland. However, some outlets would call her the Angel of Death. Since her murders took place in the early 2000s, once people started to realize the correlation between her visits and the death of their relatives or friends or anything of that nature, she was quickly caught within relatively 5 years' time. Since her murders took place in the early 2000s, once people started to realize the people she visited were dying, she was caught relatively quickly. Over the course of 5 years, she killed 5 people. The case began to unravel after one of the victims was taken to the hospital near death. During the preliminary investigation, the police unearthed several graves of Nykopp-Koski's victims. Nykopp-Koski has continually denied all accusations, and according to her defense counsel, will not be satisfied with anything but the dismissal of all charges. Their defense also said, quote, "She is currently considering all possible instances where to lodge an appeal," end quote. Now, the rejection of the appeal would leave the team not surprised, but also according to the defense, the case would have been more about reevaluating the evidence to prove that her patients died of natural causes that were completely out of her control. In its decision, the court appeal concluded that the murders and attempted murder was committed in cold blood by administering non-prescribed drugs, primarily sedatives, to patients in poor health. The court also viewed that Nykopp-Koski took advantage of patients' trust with the medical staff. Now, according to the psychological examination, the defendant was fully criminal liable for her actions, but exhibits, for example, a pronounced inclination to lie. In addition, the nurse also faced aggravated assault charges for spiking her co-worker's coffee with eye drops, and theft charges from stealing from the victims of poisoning. When she was arrested, the police seized roughly 1,800 pills from her during the investigation in Helsinki District Court in December 2010 and pleaded not guilty. Though the court convicted her, she was sentenced to life in prison. Minimum of 12 years must be served before she was even likely to get parole. During the mental health assessment, psychiatrists found out that Nykopp-Koski had psychopathic and antisocial personality disorders, but she was deemed culpable for her actions despite the assessment results. The sentence was upheld by Helsinki Court of Appeals in March 2012. Supreme Court of Finland dismissed her leave to appeal in November 2012. After her conviction, Nykopp-Koski changed her name to Anne-Marie Mellgren. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I'm not going to use her new name just for the rest of the story. I'm just going to continue to call her by the name we've been using this entire time. In May 2020, the Helsinki Court of Appeals rejected Nykopp-Koski's parole application. Nykopp-Koski had requested to be paroled in March 2021 when she would have served a legal minimum of 12 years. Based on court information, her parole was rejected because she was a high-risk re-offender due to the nature of the situation. Nykopp-Koski was born in November 1950 and her current age is 71 years old. As of today, we have no idea why she killed those 5 people. However, one thing we do know for sure is at least she ain't going nowhere no time soon. And that is the story of Aino Nykopp-Koski.
That was a wonderful explanation. But I just want to say, because this is a Finnish name, I think you're supposed to pronounce it a little bit more with melody. I think it's supposed to be like Nykopp-Koski or like Nykopp-Koski.
No.
I don't know Finnish, but I think it's like they have a little bit of melody when they speak. But it's okay. Like it's like you're American. It's fine. Like it's. I can't even say. I can't even speak Spanish. Spanish.
He says Spanish.
Finnish. I mean. But this case was very interesting, and it's actually similar ways as the previous one that the previous episode that we had, which is, even though the other one is a bit older. And this is a more modern or like newer crime, which things that I thought was interesting here is that it took her a little bit longer, a longer period of time. So 5 years, 5 people, so like 1 killing per year. And the only time she was busted was because one of her patients, I guess, if you can call it that, or victims, she failed to kill them, basically. And due to modern ways of handling, I guess, and doing detective work and like modern technology, they were able to like kind of see that there was a pattern. This is it's very simple, honestly, like with the traits that she have, and also her colleagues explaining, even though we don't have anything of her younger years, we do see like tendencies of like lying, aggressiveness, spiking or like doping or stuff as well with her colleagues or co-workers. So this is a very like, here we can see that she have tendencies of
because it's so crazy, because like when you always think about like people who have antisocial behaviors, or even the way people use antisocial nowadays, it's not used correctly. Antisocial does not mean someone doesn't like to talk, or be alone, or they just have this depressing gray energy. Antisocial behavior usually refers to someone who is unable to properly sympathize with someone who has a problem understanding human emotions and what's right and what's wrong, because their connection to how they feel is like, it doesn't exist almost. Like they have a very, very, very small emotional range. And a lot of that range is usually like anger, jealousy, and like just this desire to like manipulate. And it's like, well, I think that's more, manipulate is more like, sociopathic. But, some, along those lines where it's just like, these traits, they're very good at blending in. People who have difficulty, like antisocial behavior, they're very good at blending in, which is why I'm not surprised about the fact that like even she being at her age before she even got arrested, that she even got as far as she did, or was able to do the things that she was able to do for even as long as she did, because a lot of them time they're very intelligent, even though it seems like she was just maybe a little dumb and she didn't kill that person. In reality, she still played it very safe. Like,
that's
only
what I'm saying.
5
Like,
kills
I
over
think
5
she was
years.
smart with it. Like, I don't think that, even though I think it's more a mistake thing. Like murderers, I guess, can make mistakes as well. That's why they get busted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think she played it very safe and smart. If she would have done this during the same period of time as the previous episode that we discussed about, like in the 80s or anything like that, I think that
she probably could have got away with
she got
way longer.
Yeah, and even that, it was so easy because like now they do have methods, and like they make sure that they journal and make sure that everything is documented, what prescription that should have and use, or like everything like that. Back in the days, I don't really know how it was in the 80s, but I think everything was a bit more chill. I
wouldn't even say chill. I would say like it was, most things were on paper, so like, you know,
it
like,
would have been easy to fake. Yeah,
it's easy to fake, you know, paperwork. It's easy to steal paperwork, destroy paperwork. It's tangible things. Even in 2000, a lot of medical records were like online. They were virtual files. Even though some hospitals, I do know, like even at that time, they were transferring stuff to like virtual files. Still, a lot of hospitals function electronically. So she got caught, one for 2 layers of reasons, like you said, because the victim didn't die fully. And that's hard to predict because, you know, opioids and stuff like that take longer to affect certain people of body weight. Gender goes into that effect as well. But then on top of that, you know, the doctors was probably like, this don't sound right. And was able to, you know, verify like this person was on something that they're not even prescribed. So that definitely, they just caught her slacking, just timing. And I think that's probably why serial killers have a harder time nowadays than obviously back in the day, because everything is recorded. People have cameras in their homes. Your cell phone can call the cops. You can be like, hey Siri, call whatever, or hey Google, or hey Alexa. So it's so easy to get caught nowadays, which I think why we don't hear about too many serial killers going or not getting caught, you know,
at least not getting
pretty
caught
readily.
Because I think
like they
that
get caught up pretty well.
Yeah, I think that most serial killers were it was easier for them back in like the 80s and 90s, I think, but like,
oh yeah,
it was a lot of the very very well-known crimes were during those time areas, I guess, because the technology, like everything exploded technology wise after, I guess it was the 90s, and then progressively just increased so fast. Phones, cameras, like everything. So yeah, I think I'm glad that she was, even though she played safe, she didn't kill as many as the previous one. And she was stopped early enough so that she couldn't do more damage, I guess.
One thing I did notice is that I realized like the Finnish court did they didn't let her leave, but they basically kept her in there because they deemed her a risk. Now, I wonder if, you know, let's say, for example, you take an assessment for, you know, a psychological evaluation and you don't fall on that scale. Do they let you leave for, like, is it solely based on your psychological assessment or your mental health? Like, let's say you killed like the last person. Let's say they killed like, you know, 138 people, speculated to have killed 138 people.
It's more a Finnish thing. They show zero mercy to, like, especially if they see hard evidence. I think that they are very fair, if that makes sense. So, and because also like there was
he got charged for it, 22 people, right? The last guy. It was he got charged for 22 people, but it was speculated to have killed 138. But he still got to serve 12 years, and he only had 10 years supervised outside of jail, and he got to live the rest of his life. But she didn't, at least according to what we saw online.
You know, I get your point. Like, it could have something to do with that, but also if you compare with the previous case, he didn't show any, what we know of, he didn't show any tendencies, as you said, of any traits in that way. So maybe they just seemed that. And also he had 12 years of good behaviors. We don't really know if she was having any good behavior, if any way. Even though she applied for parole, it doesn't mean that she actually was good during her stay for those 12 years. So it could be also that, if you have to take that into consideration as well. But I also think, like, based on what you've told and said and everything that we know of, I wouldn't either deem her even the chance to be on parole because of her tendencies that she has shown previously, even though it's 12 years after or later.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like, would you feel comfortable?
No. No. Like, but this is also too, like, someone who's used, like I said, I'm used to like an American system, but specifically in her case, I definitely don't think I would be comfortable letting her out, because anyone with that kind of mental health, it's one thing to have depression, it's one thing to be anxious, it's one thing to have PTSD, but to have antisocial, psychotic behavior, sociopathic behavior, that means you are like the highest of risk to kill someone again, because you don't feel emotions the same way that, you know, a regular person should feel emotions. You know, sociopaths, they mostly think of themselves. If you are a threat to them in any way, shape, or form, whether it be physical or non-physical, they're still likely to just be like, I'm going to manipulate you and I might still kill you anyway. Like, and same thing, you know, going for like someone who's showing antisocial personality disorders. They're like very, like, their emotions are very disconnected.
But even though they saw these tendencies, she still didn't get any help from that, I guess. Usually, don't they try to, like, not put them on a mental house or anything like that? Or, I mean, wouldn't they do some kind of treatment or try to, like, or is she so far gone that they just decided that it doesn't matter, she's still valid to go to jail? Or, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like usually don't they really do those things?
It's really tough because, like, I remember reading a case when, you know, I was in college where, like, someone who had these tendencies, they didn't commit any crime. They turned themselves in because they recognized that what they've been feeling their entire life wasn't normal. So, like, that's an instance of, like, someone in their environment who was basically giving them whatever they needed emotionally, mentally, but yet still something was wrong, which usually can happen. You know, your brain, certain parts of your brain can just be underdeveloped, which can cause these, you know, anomalies to pop up of people who just don't feel things, or they just, you know, they only are intact with very specific dark emotions. That can happen. But that was an example of someone who was in a good environment and knew that what he was feeling wasn't normal and turned himself in. And then he was able to get help, and he had a decent, at least from what I read, he had a decent life because he didn't commit anything. He turned himself in, and he was scared of what he might do. And I think in most cases when people do pop up like this, they don't realize that feeling that cold and disconnected isn't normal until they get to like a certain age, and then they're like, why aren't people thinking the way that I do? But then they learn how to blend in and fake it. And I don't know if anybody's seen the TV show Dexter, but it's kind of like that, where Dexter was someone who was traumatized as a kid, but also he had like these tendencies to kill. He enjoyed killing, but his dad was a cop, and he realized that he had these tendencies to kill. So he raised him to only kill criminals, and he taught him how to be a detective, to investigate before you kill, make sure you have the right person, then satisfy that urge by using it for good. But like, that's also a product of environment as well, where you can teach someone either how to deal with it, or in that extreme case of a TV show, teach someone how to kill bad guys.
Oh my god.
But you know, it's just, that's what,
like, if we think of those cases that you mentioned right now, I understand what you mean. Like either like to me, it sounds like even though you have these traits, you can still do something about it if you have a good environment to help you detect those things. Mm-hmm. So it could also be environmental, but as well, right? Like if I understood correctly. So it's like it's not only if we don't really know her background per se, but if she didn't have that growing up, that environment she needed to like be able to, because apparently as it looked like she was lying and stuff because she denied it, even though like she didn't feel that it was anything bad, it sounds like, because she was basically denying everything.
Yeah, like I'm not faulting her parents because I don't know the situation. I'm going to assume naturally, let's just assume she grew up like everybody else. Chances are she probably just grew up and was floating under the radar. She probably went through that period where things seemed a little off, and then she learned how to mask it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Masking.
Went about her life, and then, unfortunately, because she was masking it for so long, eventually you can only bury something like that for so long before those urges or the desire to do stuff like that starts to kick in. And they just like, I could do this right now. Like, because it's human. And no matter what anyone says, it is human. Sometimes your mind thinks of things randomly because you wonder things. You never like been like holding someone's baby and like, what if I accidentally drop it? Ooh. Even though you're not. Like, even though you're not going to drop the child.
Like anxious. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to drop.
But it's like the same thought. Like, I don't want to drop the child. Like, you think it, but then your mind quickly, it's just like letting your mind know like this is a possibility. And then as a normal person, you're able to be like, all right, let me just hold the baby tighter and, go about my day. And the thought just leaves your mind.
Or not hold the baby at all.
Because exactly. So you do things preventatively to not put yourself in that situation. But in this case, I feel like because she masked it for so long, she was just like,
nobody would know.
I'm going to submit. Yeah, I can submit to my thoughts, and who would know? It's just me. And her mind never created those, scenarios where she could avoid it. So she gave in probably. So who's to say? I don't know. But y'all let me know. What do you feel is what's going on in her head? Because she did show antisocial, personality disorder and, just an inclination to lie. And she was very much, psychopathic in certain ways. So y'all let us know how y'all feel about the case. And, all that jazz. And I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you, enjoy these little things that we're doing. We're going to try and also we're going to reach random points in time as well and cover maybe some super old stuff, but also some modern things that are really cool as well. So go ahead, Delila, saying goodbye to the audience. And
goodbye, everyone. Thank you all for listening.
And just a little word of advice for everyone. Yesterday I said try bacon. I said yesterday.
It was yesterday for us though, but it's.
I mean, true. So last episode I said have a piece of bacon. It'll make your day better. Well, today be sure to have 8 glasses of water today. Okay.
Glass of water.
Make sure you drink your water.
Oh my God, eggs and bacon this time. Not a glass of water.
Well, if you want to have eggs and bacon, just throw a little side of apple juice on there, and then
Oof. Okay, I'm gonna eat
that
now.
Sounds good. And I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.